Welcome to Education Today, the guest teacher edition. I'm your host, Solanke. After 15 years as a secondary English teacher, I stepped away from the classroom and took a 1-year hiatus. Now I'm back in a completely new capacity. I'm a substitute teacher, and I get to experience teaching all grade levels and subjects from kindergarten to 12th grade. Join me as I document my journey, seeing education through a brand new lens and a different angle. Welcome to week 2 of Guest Teacher. I'm your host, Solanke, and I just completed my second week of substitute teaching after 15 years of full-time teaching, plus a year's break. So this week I was in 5 different schools. Elementary and middle, no high school. 5 different schools, 5 different classrooms, 5 different sets of germs. My body is so confused. So when I was teaching full time, I would always get sick at the beginning of every school year. I think that's quite common for a lot of teachers. It's like your immune system just gets hit with all these germs. And I would always get sick somewhere like August, September or something. And often I would get sick again in January when we came back after Christmas. And then my body would get accustomed to the germs. But this is a whole new experience because it's like every time I go to another school, I'm encountering a brand new set of germs. You know, and I'm used to high school, although high schoolers will sometimes sneeze without covering their mouths and stuff. But first graders and kindergartners and, you know, the little ones, maybe sometimes they'll sneeze without you. They'll sneeze on you. You know, and they're not doing it intentionally. We're still in the process of teaching them, you know, to cover their mouth, wash their hands, use sanitizer, etc. Wash your hands when you get out the bathroom. So I've been dealing with some little ones also. So my immune system is confused. Why are we going into different environments every day with brand new sets of germs? So hopefully I'll acclimatize soon because, yeah, boy, I'm struggling. I really am. All right, so what did I see this week in my guest teaching journey? I love that title, guest teacher. I love going into school and say, hello, my name is so-and-so, I'm the guest teacher. And I have a badge that says guest teacher. I think it's pretty awesome. They're always so happy to see you. They're like, oh, thank God you're here. They're always so happy to see you. What did I see this week in my journey? Well, I saw some things. I will say, first of all, that as a middle and high school teacher, I always taught 6 class periods. So some years I would teach 2 different classes. Perhaps I had like 9th grade English and 10th grade English. I think the most I had is 4, but usually I would have about 3 different preps, they call it, 3 different classes. So maybe I had a couple of 9th grade classes, maybe I had a couple of 10th grade classes, and maybe had an AP class and 11th grade class. That means there's 3 different types of lessons to prepare each day, which means that when I'm out, there's 3 different sets of lessons. But sometimes, because it's all English and because they're kind of closely aligned, 9th and 10th, you know, you could get away with perhaps leaving them the same thing. It really depends on what you're doing, because sometimes you would have to, it depends, if you try to leave them something that aligns with what you're doing in class, then obviously they're going to have 3 different lessons. But the most I would have is like 3 different worksheets, 3 different lessons. But going into elementary school classrooms as a substitute teacher and seeing the extent, the lessons that need to be left by these teachers of 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, do this. 9 o'clock to 9:15, take them to specials. Go pick them up, then do this. Have them do this activity, silent reading, watch this video, have them do this activity. Then they switch to another teacher and you get a new group, do that. It's very extensive to the point that I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, I wouldn't even take a day off. That is just way too much work. I would not take a day off if I taught elementary, because that is way too much work. Speaking of teaching elementary, I subbed for 2 days in one elementary school in this county, this new county, and they offered me a temporary gig, a maternity leave. There's a lot of pregnant women around. Something in the water there. I wasn't drinking the water. They offered me a temporary gig. This is what it feels like to me, the gig that they offered me. And it's 5th grade English language arts, which is it's just right up my street. I mean, I taught sixth grade English language arts for 4 years. I could definitely do that, and I'm certified to do that. This is what it felt like because I was in my previous district, full-time teacher for 15 years, and it was okay. It was good, but the breakup was a little messy. So it feels like I went through a breakup after a 15-year relationship. I didn't teach last year. I was on leave. So it feels like for last year, I just, after the breakup, I was just by myself. And then now I've started substitute teaching. I've only done a few schools. So it feels like I've been on a few dates. After a 15-year relationship, I spent a year getting to know myself. And then I went on a few dates. And at date number 3, he proposed. That's what it feels like. And I'm like, wait, I still want to go on more dates and play the field and see what it's like to be single. You know, I said this analogy to a friend of mine at the gym, and she looked at me. She was like, "I thought I thought you've been married for a long time." I was like, "Yes, I have. It's an analogy. I'm using it as an analogy for the fact that the school's trying to lock me down." But yeah, I'll definitely consider it. I'm very flattered. What else happened this week? I substituted in a first grade classroom, and a comment was made to me that today is going to be a lighter day because they need it because they've been testing all week. And in my head, I'm thinking, why is 6 and 7-year-olds testing all week? What is going on? Why can't kindergarten and first grade be more play, fun learning? Oh my goodness. What have we done to education? What have we done so that now I'm sure there's some kids who just don't even want to go to school? When you that age, you love school, but if you're testing, oh my goodness. And it's only September. School just started last month and we're already testing these babies to death. Oh my goodness. The teacher left the teacher, I love that teacher. Her classroom was beautiful. She left a book for me to read to those first graders, and it was called, let me see when we get it. Substitute Creature. It's a Halloween themed book about a substitute teacher who's a creature, a monster. But he's not like a scary monster. He's like a strict teacher. Oh, that book got them in line. They were like, we don't want to be in trouble like the kids in the book. I thought that was so cute. What a cute book. So that was fun. Her classroom was beautiful. Now, and it was, and I know the elementary classrooms are usually beautiful and full of all kinds of things. I mean, it was just so beautiful. But what I was just looking at it and I was thinking, the amount of money this woman spent on personalization for the students, for the things on their desk, the things on the back of their chairs, the things in their cubbies, and all the other things around the classroom goes way beyond the little stipend that they give us every year to spend on our classroom. And and I know that it's possible. Like as a teacher, I didn't go out and buy everything all at one time. I built up things over years, so it's possible that she's been buying these things bit by bit over years. But I did meet her actually, and she's young. I don't think she's been teaching that long. But even if she has, she spent way more money on that classroom than the little stipend because it's not looking around. It's not like this stuff is 5 years old. It's like this looks like new stuff that she just bought this summer, maybe a year ago, 2 ago, whatever. Looks like everything looks new, you know? So it's crazy that we have to spend so much money to make the classrooms nice. And I've heard that at this elementary school level, that you have to make it nice or you could be in trouble. You could be reprimanded or chastised if your classroom doesn't look like lights, camera, action. Which sometimes I think is a little too much stimulation, but hers was beautiful. It was really colorful. I was just struck by the amount of money this woman has obviously spent out of her own pocket to make this classroom look and feel beautiful for these children, which it really was. It's not right because we don't get paid. We don't get paid our worth as it is, and there are literally teachers here in Florida, the way the economy is now, who, if they are single, cannot afford to rent an apartment by themselves. They have to find a roommate or roommates. That's how bad things are right now. I mean, you can be making the amount that teachers make in Florida. It's just we're towards the bottom in the country in terms of pay. But you can have a full-time job. You could have a bachelor's, or many of us have master's degrees. I've even met some more PhDs who the counties that I'm working in don't get extra for that. And you can't even afford a 2-bedroom apartment in the way things are in the Tampa Bay area right now. That's sad. And yet you're still expected to spend money in a classroom. And the little bit of stipend they give you, if you're a high school math teacher, yeah, that's you're fine. If you're an elementary school teacher, no, that's nothing. That's absolutely nothing. Especially if you go to Target, because if you go to Target, whew, you're spending a lot. Especially that little section they have. I think that section is just for us teachers. That little section at the front when you walk in, you're like, oh my goodness, what do they have now? They've changed it. Let me get something cute. There's a cute. I bought some cute stuff for my classroom and for my house in that little. I guess it's like a dollar section, $5 section in Target. Oh my goodness, so cute. So, on a more serious note, there were two things that really struck me this week in two different schools. Um, One of them was when I walked into a school, a middle school, one of the first things I saw was a mural on the wall. I was like, oh, that's so pretty. When I looked at it more closely, I thought, oh, I realized the focus of the mural is like a painting of outdoors. The focus was the sky and the clouds. As I got closer, I realized the clouds, the way they did it was so beautiful. When you get closer, you see there are faces in the cloud. And as soon as I saw those faces, I knew this is the memorial wall. And I got closer and you could see the faces beautifully painted in the clouds. And then when you got really close, you could see the name of the person and the date of birth and date of death. And that was so beautiful and poignant. And it was clearly people, staff members, and unfortunately one student who passed away while working at or attending the school. And so it's sad, but it was beautiful at the same time. What a beautiful memorial to those people. And the heartbreaking one was the child. It was a middle school, young child who died. I was thinking about my previous school, and we had something similar. It was outdoors. It was like a tree, and then I think it was like a tree, and there was like little metal plaques formed like leaves of names of people, not people, staff members or students who had passed away while either working at or attending the school. But it wasn't maintained, and I was there for 11 years, and it wasn't maintained. I remember one student being added, at least one student who passed away, unfortunately, being added. But I was there for 11 years and more people passed away. I can think of at least two staff members who passed away while I was there, and I kept waiting for their names to be added. It was never updated. And I know of at least one student who sadly passed away, whose name was never added. But I think there were more than that one, actually. I think it was more. I'm just remembering the one because it was because of the circumstances. It's something that you just wouldn't forget. And then I'm reminded of the time that my own coworker, who's one of the two adults I mentioned, passed away sadly over the summer. And when we returned, there was no school-wide mention of the fact that she'd passed. There was no school-wide moment of silence. There was no school-wide just remembering her. Nothing, no plaque, nothing. I know as a department, I think as a department, we took up a collection and sent flowers to her mother for the funeral. But as a school, the leadership of the school didn't memorialize this woman. In fact, somebody that same summer before we got out, somebody else had passed away under tragic circumstances. And that one was at least acknowledged. I remember there was like a faculty meeting, but I just remember after that happened with my colleague in my department when she passed away over the summer, and we came back, and there was no like school-wide acknowledgement of her passing away, or the fact that she'd been there for longer than me. I was there for 11 years. When I got there, I met her there, and she passed away about it was before COVID, I think. So maybe like I don't know, 2019. Yes, I think 2019. So she was there for a while because she met me. I met her there when I came. She was there, but I remember that fall sitting in the bleachers in the gym. I'm not sure what I think I think it was picture day actually, and I was always through the English department picture day. I actually didn't mind that. It's a day off. Taking the kids to the gym to get their pictures taken, and I looked down at the bench I was sitting on, and there was a little memorial plaque that had just been put there. And it was for, I guess there was a guy in the community who loved the school. I don't know if he had kids who had attended there, but if for some reason he loved the school and always came to the basketball games. And he had passed away that summer. And there was a plaque on the bench. And it's possible his family put it there, but I don't think so. From seeing it, it looked like it was something from like the basketball team of the school or something. And there was a plaque memorializing him. I remember thinking, that's beautiful. But there was a staff member who worked here. Where is her plaque? That particular incident with that teacher is what made me realize that if you died tomorrow, they will not care. They will replace you in a heartbeat. That was the lesson I took away from that. And that memorial wall in that middle school, it was updated because, unfortunately, the date of death of the student was last year. It was up to date. It was really beautifully done. Really beautifully done. Beautiful memorial. Very sad, but beautiful memorial. And I wish that had been the case in my old school. And yeah, if you die tomorrow, they will replace you. So that is something that I reminded myself when I was trying to kill myself to do the best for the students. Yeah. Well, I went to a school this week and I had encounters with two different teachers. It's really interesting how it happened. People just open up to me and start talking. And, you never know when God will put you in a situation to be of help to someone, or just to be a listening ear, to pray with somebody or for someone, or just encourage someone by sharing your own experience. And that is what happened to me this week. I had two teachers, two separate incidents in the same school. One of them was, I was in the room with her and I was overhearing a phone conversation. There was some kind of a custody battle going on. There was a lot of pain there. There was tears. And then she was opening up to me about how one of her stepkids was battling cancer, and she had to constantly take FMLA, I guess her and her spouse, to take the child to the nearest, what is that children's hospital called that deals with cancer? St. Jude's. Not even in the state, a few states away. That's far. That is far. Like if you're driving, that's a far drive. It's not even the next state. I think she said Tennessee. That's far. And she said driving, not flying. So this woman's teaching, in between teaching, great concern, medical care for this stepchild, and having to take FMLA and go for the cancer treatments and come back and still come do her job to the best of her ability. It is so hard to be a teacher, period. It is so much harder to be a teacher when you are dealing with things like divorces, custody battles, sickness. I know because I've been there. Yeah. And it just reminded me of the school years where I had to work through my dad being sick and then passing, and then my mom being sick and then passing, basically watching her die. That whole school year was a blur to me. It was just tough. But we're expected to bring it every day for the kids. Bring it for this. It feels like a performance sometimes. Bring it for the kids, and you never know when an administrator is going to pop in to make sure you're bringing it for the kids. God forbid you should have a day when you're like, I cannot do this today. We are watching CNN 10. We are watching the news. We're watching, and you can take notes on the news and what's happening, and you can do a little activity. I cannot do this today. God forbid a teacher should say that. I'll have a day like that. Can't have a day off like that. Got to bring it. There was another incident with a teacher who, she was sitting in the cafeteria, in the staff cafeteria, crying. And I was like, what's going on? Some staff members were there. They didn't. And that's when I learned that I think in elementary schools, it's very segmented, compartmentalized. So first grade teachers stick together, second grade. I realized that because some teachers were coming in and wouldn't even say anything to her. And I was like, that's weird. It's almost like they didn't know her, didn't know what was going on. Then one of her colleagues came in, put her arm over and said, I'm so sorry. And I was overhearing the conversation. I was able to ascertain that she'd just come back from a 1 week funeral leave. She buried her father, and she came back, and For some people, coming back to work is a good distraction. For this woman, it was not, and that was my experience with my mom. It was not a good distraction. But for some people, they need work to take their mind off the grief. But for some people, like she's not ready, but she doesn't have the time, meaning that they're not going to pay you for more time off to get yourself together. And she was talking to me and saying that she was a daddy's girl, and she didn't know how she was going to get through without her dad. And she was actually telling me about another loss she'd had just 2 years prior. There was a heavy loss, and now this one. And she was struggling. She said her kids were struggling, and yeah. But you've had 1 week off. We're not paying you for more. You got to come back and you got to bring it for the kids. You got to be on. You got to have those lessons ready. You got to be ready for those tests. Because when we test those kids to death, they don't pass. You're going. You're getting marked down as a bad teacher. And we'll move you to first grade next year or whatever. I don't know. Maybe her administration isn't like that. Not every admin is like that. Maybe her admin is actually very, understanding rather. Sorry, and yeah, and give her a break. I don't know, but I just know that woman was not ready to be back at school and to bring it for the kids. She was sitting there crying. I talked to her for a while, and I told her I would pray for her. And I was telling her about my own experience. She said 2 years ago, I literally watched my mom waste away and die. And then I had to come back to school, and said the rest of that school year was a blur. I literally didn't even attach to some of the kids. There were like 4 classes of students where I don't even remember their names, and I remember the names of every student. I remember every class. This particular class that year, for some reason, I remember the AP students that I had. I think because maybe I had them prior. I don't know. But my 10th graders that year, I couldn't even tell you who they were. That whole year was a blur. It was after COVID. It was after dealing with my mom, the loss of my mom. It was just, it was a blur. Yeah, I just couldn't do it. I tried my best. And the kids actually academically, they did fine. But I just, it was not a great year. And I know that with every other job, some of you probably listening say, yeah, well, every job, that's how it is. You have a loss. You go to a funeral, you have a few days off, you come back, they don't get more time off. I know. And I know some jobs, there are other jobs where you have to bring it, like teaching too. But it's just this thought of having to like almost put on a performance every day is so exhausting when your heart is breaking. It really is, I guess all you can do is just do your best, Well, that's it for this week. Those are my reflections from my second week of teaching as a guest teacher. And I will say it is a fraction of the pay I was getting as a full-time teacher, but it is a fraction of the stress. And I leave at the end of the day. And if the kids were bad, I say to myself, that is not my problem. That is your teacher's problem when he gets back. And I leave at the end of the day without any essays to grade, without worrying about the lesson plans for tomorrow and how I have to adjust them. No faculty meetings. Whew, feels good to leave at the end of the day. Feels good. All right. That's all I got for you this week. I'll see you again next week. Bye. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Education Today. We'll be back next time with more current topics on all things education. In the meantime, you can email any questions or comments you have about the show to edtodaypodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, please hit the subscribe button and consider leaving a review on whichever platform you are listening. We are listener supported, so if you are able to give a one-time or monthly donation, check out the show notes for ways in which you can give. Check out my blog for more about my experiences in education at medium.com/@SOKO. That's medium.com/@SOHKOR. You can also find me on Instagram at @SOKO_writes. That's @SOHKOR_WRITES. KOR_rights. See you next time, and thank you again for listening.